Welcome to a new edition of the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino. On this episode, we talk with educational psychologist Alan Carroll. He specializes in transpersonal psychology. He founded Alan Carroll and Associates 30 years ago, and before that, he was a senior sales training consultant for 10 years at Digital Equipment Corporation. He has dedicated his life in search of mindfulness tools that can be used by everyone, young and old, to transform their ability to speak at a professional level, as well as to reduce the psychological suffering caused by the misidentification with our ego and reconnect to the vast transcendent dimension of consciousness that lies just on the other side of the thoughts we think and in between the words we speak. He's got a great story. Enjoy.
Hi, Joe. I'm excited.
I am too, man. Thank you for taking a minute out. I appreciate it.
Yeah, I like to be able to share things that I've learned on my journey, and a lot of what you talk about in terms of music and jazz is very connected to mindfulness. So it's nice to be able to marry the two.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the one thing I do, and I can't profile it on my Podmatch page, is that I do moonlight with a whole other host of folks. But I'm glad that you dig the jazz element, and it really is about it's rather expansive for the mind. So it's great to be able to dig into your world. And before we get into that world of yours, I want to begin by the global elephant in the room, which has been COVID. And I want to know how you survived that 3-year period now that we're entering the post-pandemic phase of our lives, and how it's changed the way that you conduct business and live your life now.
In the what comes to mind is the tarot cards. And the tarot cards have a lot to do with Carl Jung's journey of self-realization, from the beginnings of the magician to the world card. And there's lots of issues that come up. And one of the tarot cards is the hermit. And the hermit leads the community and has enlightenment, then comes back to the community. And what happens in COVID is that the community separates. And now the community is coming back together again. But once in a while, creating separation creates space. And when you create space, you create screen door experiences rather than storm door experiences. The energy flows through you. So we were out of balance. And so now you have to figure out a way, how do you survive in a more isolated way? But that gets, people survive. Now things are coming back again. My business, as far as the work business, I was fortunate because you can transform people when they're speaking virtually, or right now live with you and I, are live physically in the same room.
So let's get to the essence of what you do. And I want to put you in front of a bunch of kids at a grade school, third graders. It's career day. One of the kids looks up and says, "What do you do for a living?" How do you answer that child?
I would ask a question. I would say, all right, everybody, raise your hand. I'm going to ask you a question, and raise your hand. How many of you, I know you're 9 years old, 8 years old. Okay, good. I'm going to ask you a question. How many of you know how to speak? Okay, raise your hand. Let me just see. I know how to speak. Okay, all right, give yourself a hand, everybody. All right, give yourself a hand. Congratulations. Yeah, everybody in this room knows how to speak. Yes, Mr. Carroll. Yeah, that's true. Yes, true. That's true. That's true. Now let me ask you, all right, if you know how to speak, you really don't need to think about speaking, do you? No, I don't need to think about speaking. I know how to speak. All right, then let's think about speaking, and let's think about the pausing between the sounds. Let's think about not speaking. Let me show you. My name is Alan Carroll. I didn't say, my name is Alan Carroll. I said that my name is Alan Carroll. And all I did was pause between the sounds that I was speaking. And if you can do that, you'll notice that you feel a lot more comfortable. Let's do an exercise, everybody. Then I'd have them do an exercise. We would stand up so you could give them the experience. And in the area of music, Joe, music has the notes that you play, but it also has the rest between the notes that you play. And when you watch people speak, there's absolutely no rest between the sounds that they speak that are consciously created, unless you're trained how to speak or you're trained how to play a musical instrument. You know those little squiggly things mean shut up. And most people aren't conscious of the squiggly things when they speak because they're busy focusing on the creation of the notes. So we've gone from third grade, we've gone a little fourth grade, fifth grade. Now we're talking to the adults to use that explanation of the total absence of the speaker creating space or pauses between the notes. And every musician knows that that's an important piece of the game, those little empty spaces. And you can create them, you become present in the moment. And the quality of the creation of the next note is tremendously influenced by the empty space that you just created between the last note. And if you can do that when you speak, then you no longer speak. You are able to control the timing of your speaking. And when you control the timing of your speaking, you can either make the flowers grow or the notes be static, or you can make the flowers die, the vibration of the air. So why not make the flowers grow? And so now I have control because I have time. And that allows you, psychologically now, we're moving into psychology, it allows you to transcend from the suffering of the ego to the liberation of the being. And all you got to do is think about creating empty stillness between the sounds that you speak, just like you create the rest between the notes that you play. And that would be a way of describing it.
That's great. That's a great analogy. So what did you want to be when you were in the third grade? What was your vision when you grew up?
Well, my name wasn't Alan. My name was Jim. And flying in airlines, astronaut, going to the moon, that sort of was an intriguing thing. And here I am a few years down the road, and I still love sci-fi. My favorite movie would be a sci-fi, I call it a sci-fi movie. It's only one of it. It's a trilogy, I guess. It's the first one. It's Matrix. Matrix #1 would be my favorite movie because that points to that transformation process of that individuation process, that being and being grounded and being present in the moment, which then I was lucky. I didn't have a lot of beliefs about how life was when I was a kid. I was pretty much left, great family, but there wasn't a lot of strong programming about you will do this. No, it just you sort of evolve. I'm the youngest son, and parents are in the military, and so military, yeah, I did that. College, that was part of it. And so, however, at one point in time, I got involved with yoga and meditation, and that led me down psychology. And here we are talking about mindfulness in 2023.
So what were some other seeds that were planted in you when you were younger? Obviously, you're very curious and what you do helps people. You definitely are one that's giving a lot of yourself in your profession. So how did those seeds begin and how did they grow into you?
There are seeds that I definitely got from reading books. Seeds of, wow, these things are actually possible. And these are books like the autobiography of a yogi, Paramahansa Yogananda's book. Talks about the Self-Realization Fellowship and his journey through India and all the things that happened to him. And then I've always was attracted to those spiritual kind of books. There's something going on here other than what I experience. And that led me to the psychology path, which is the inner journey, learning about myself, finding out what's ticking inside of Alan. And then I did a training that accelerated me down the path of that longing to transcend, I suppose, or enlightenment, or whatever the word, spiritual development. And that was a fellow in San Francisco named Werner Erhard. And he founded the S Trainings. And S Trainings had transformed into the Landmark Education Corporation Forum Trainings, but it's the same flavor of food that are in both environments. And that really, whew, and what that did, it got me onto the stage of public speaking. And for me, being a more of an introvert, quiet, conservative person, to be able to step onto the stage of public speaking was terrifying. But fortunately, there was another part of me which kept shoving me down the road, and so the terror didn't overcome me. And you discover that you can use the stage of speaking to control the timing of your speaking. And as soon as you can control the timing of your speaking while you are speaking, which I'm demonstrating now, an immediate wave of relaxation flows through your body if you're able to create that little space. I call them cracks of stillness between the notes that you play, between the sounds that you speak. My observation after 40 years is nobody even thinks about those little spaces. The ego is thinking about the sounds, or not thinking about creating spaces. But if you can create those spaces, it will transform your ability to think. It will transform your ability to speak. It will allow you to relax. It will allow you to breathe. You can't breathe and speak at the same time. And by creating those little cracks of emptiness, you can now take a much bigger breath in, which gives you more power to exert the energy of creating the note.
You know, it's interesting. You'll respect this based on what you've explained about speech and pause and the space. You know, I've interviewed a lot of musicians that directly work with Miles Davis, and it's a very strange way that people get when they get reflective on Miles. And I never try to come right out and bring Miles out, because he's just one of those guys that can be a lightning rod one way or another. But the cream that always rises to the top with Miles, and anybody that's talked about him, the best thing that was ever told to me was that he was an immaculate listener. He was one of those guys that just listened, and he knew how to decipher sound. And with what you're describing there, it kind of pays to the idea of his genius and who he was and how he would dissect and figure it out. So it's interesting just kind of thinking about how you brought up jazz and space and all of that. One of the masters of that idiom was probably one of those that could really parse out space in a way that maybe no one will ever be able to understand.
That's beautiful. That's really nice. Just one other thing, another benefit of creating that space between the sounds that you speak, you access two things that you can't access unless you create the space. One thing that you access is creativity, because creativity comes out of nothing and empty space. That's not something that you change. That's already there. Creativity is not there. So it has to start from not there. So when you erase the sounds that you were going to say, you create a blank slate from which creativity, which is the next sound, is going to emerge. And the quality of that sound, after you give it some space to think and create it and let it bubble up from this empty space of nothingness is one of the benefits. Whether you're having a conversation like you and I are having, or whether we're playing in a jazz ensemble in which they're playing off of each other and merging and connecting and riding each other's energy and opening up, letting some other energy coming in. The key word in articulation, when you articulating your thoughts that you speak, is that whatever thought form that you're able to get, that you are creating, appears to be clear to the person receiving it. Second thing is that it's clear and it's understandable. You're able to make it understandable to a third grade audience. And also, and the important one is the speaking has fluidity. You have fluidity when you speak. And fluidity is the empty spaces between the notes. Fluidity is the water between the rocks. And when you have fluidity, whoo, boy, the quality of your experience because now you're not caught by the ego, and ego is the source of the suffering. And if you can create fluidity, you have the screen door experience of the energy comes in and out. You don't have the storm door of resistance, and you have a much happier, psychological happier life if you can live a life with a screen door rather than a storm door.
That's wonderful. So, in your life, who have you really admired? Who's been like a hero or a role model for you?
Math was not my strong suit in school. And math was required, though. I went to Pasadena High School in the 60s. And Dr. Zintel was the mathematician person. And he stayed with me. He connected with me, he helped, and he guided me at that point through the geometry patterns and Algebra 2, and it was nice to have someone as one of my favorite teachers at the time in high school. As far as the gurus, boy, there's just if I was going to look at who's available right now, I would go immediately to three. I would go to Mooji, Mooji. I would go to Sadhguru, Sadhguru, and I would go to Eckhart Tolle, Tolle. Any of those restaurants are talking about fluidity, talking about space, talking about transpersonal consciousness in a way that is very well articulated.
If you can meet anybody alive on the planet right now, who would you love to meet and talk to?
I think it would be fun to talk to Barack Obama. Is he available? Can you make that happen, Joe?
I wish. I'd be there with you.
I'll make it, well, two of us then. We'll go together. That's fine. You'll need to be there.
Yes.
We'll go together.
I love it. The one thing about our lives as we get older is that we accumulate wisdom and overcome things. And I'm curious, if you have a dream tonight, you run into, say, the 20-year-old version of yourself, and you could dispense some advice based on the wisdom and the paths that you've been down in your life, what would you tell your young version?
I'm with you.
Yeah.
You're looking at the, my analytical mind would go through a whole bunch of things. How open are they? The listening of the person I'm talking to. I'm going to assume that they are a seeker, not a believer, that you are seeking to go beyond your conditioned reality and that you've gotten to that stage. Find yourself some training. Like go to those three people that I mentioned and start listening to the music that they sing. And if the music that they sing attracts you, then there's ways you can enter into that world step by step by step, and very comfortable, is very safe. But until we begin to transform the way your narrative about the movie that you're in, you're not going to get. There's a lot more joy if you can figure out a way to navigate through the thoughts that you think. And so I'd give them the three names that I gave you. I'd give them the websites. I would even take them over there and have them see it so they can go to the restaurant and see whether or not the food tastes good.
So when you look back on your life and you think about all the things that you've done and accomplished, what are you the proudest of? What puts the biggest smile on your face?
My relationship with my wife, my partner, over the 31 years, going on 32 years of relationships, and being able to, it's like riding in the crystal ship, and you get to experience life together and create things, and having a harmonious person by your side is a blessing. So I've been blessed with a wonderful, wonderful wife.
So when you get to the end of your proverbial day, you look back at everything you've done and accomplished, how do you quantify or qualify a really good day for you?
Being able to share, like we're doing now, Joe, things that I've discovered on my journey, and have that disseminated out to as many ears that can hear it, and then to be able to maybe ignite a spark that leads to a flame, that people will begin to realize that until they begin to close their eyes and do the inner journey, the outer world is not going to be a real big source of satisfaction for you. So there has to be that inner journey, the meditation, the eyes closed. We call it moments of stillness. Just you can just close your eyes once in a while during the day. Just cut off the visuals. That would help you settle the mind and relax you. Then open your mind and then do what you have to do. But wow, it's moments of stillness, Joe, as much as you can get during the day, especially when the days are rocking and rolling like they are nowadays.
Yeah, amen. Yeah. So what's been one of the best responses, quote unquote, fan letters you've ever gotten from the work that you've done in your life?
We did a training recently in Haley, Idaho. Our lead trainer lives in Haley, Idaho. And the student wrote a letter about the training and the training of the organization. And she was amazed at the power of controlling the timing of her speaking when she's speaking. And so she goes through a 3-day training, and she says, not only did it transform my ability to speak, it also created a buffer zone of silence that allowed me to listen better. And that not only helped, but my kids responded to me differently. And that's the power of controlling the timing of your speaking. And we get letters, and it's available to everybody. It's free. It doesn't cost any money to pause. You just have to wake up to do it. And just another analogy, I'm glad you like analogies. When you dream at night, you wake up the next day, oh yeah, I dreamed, and it sort of fades away. Now, you can also dream, and you can wake up in the dream and realize that you're dreaming. And that's called a lucid dream. And when you wake up in the dream and know you're dreaming, it's a whole nother experience of consciousness. Have you had a lucid dream in your life, Joe?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, at one point in probably my early 30s, I got an ESP book and really tried to hone in and talk to people about it, and it was pretty cool. Yeah, it's. I've had my father passed in 2008 at 64, and I've had some dreams. I actually had a dream when I was a kid. I lost my best friend. I was 16, he was 17, and he used to come to me, and we would have these moments, and I would always be like, "You're not here." And he never directly responded when I would say that, but I would see him. And I finally got to the point where I realized he was on the other side, so I wanted to ask him a question. And I said, "What does God feel like?" And all of a sudden, I was over a serene lake on a rope swing that attached to nothing but sky. And as I went over the top of the water, my big toe barely skimmed the top of it, and boom, that was it. I woke up. I never saw him after that. Like, I asked the question. I think there may be some clause on the other side that's like, if you go to certain places, it might be over. I never saw him after that, but he definitively answered the question that I had.
Wow. What an image that's still with you vividly today. That's really a blessing and a gift.
It was pretty cool. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
And I saw my dad too by about a year, and I haven't seen him since then. We've had some family, families go through their changes, and I saw him at kind of this revival at like a red barn, and there was people and things that were happening that were kind of indicative of the times that were happening. And anyway, I always try to really grab on and relish those moments when you can kind of have that moment of lucidity. And I didn't mean to go off on a tangent, but yeah, I just wanted to kind of expound on that point with you.
That's fine. That's fine. I find that the sharing of stories back and forth, the sharing of experiences, adds a nice quality to the conversation.
Yeah, for sure. So everyone out there has a perception of you, an idea of who they think you are, your family, your friends, your clients, but you live your life. What's your perception of you? Who do you think you are?
I'm a seeker. I spend my time enjoying the seeking, enjoying the meditation, enjoying the talking to people like yourself, talking on podcasts, doing training, and speaking, working on writing another book, something to do with mindful, spacious speaking. Take that, and so you got this going on. And traveling. I'm going to be celebrating my 75th birthday, and my wife said, "Well, where do you want to go for your 75th birthday?" And I looked, and as you probably, I've traveled a lot in the world, and I said, "You know what? I think I want to go to Sedona." And Sedona is just if you're into spirituality, it's like the Mecca of spirituality. You go there, it's just a tremendously... Have you been to Sedona, Joe?
I have not. I would love to.
Okay. It's just the American Indians tribes would meet at Sedona, and it was a sacred ground in which there was no violence, because there was something about that ground, the energy there. They call them vortexes, the channeling of whatever. And so it's a mecca for people to go and have spiritual journeys. So I thought, well, why not go there and meet with the shamans and experience the travels and trails, and so that's what I'll be doing for my birthday that's coming up.
That's wonderful. Well, happy birthday, man. This has been really wonderful to catch up with you and have you give me your story about your life. Thank you for opening up. Thanks for the time. Good luck with everything.
Joe, thank you for the opportunity to share, and something I enjoy doing every day.
Thanks for tuning in to another famous interview with Joe Dimino, where we cover the world of art, literature, business, spirituality, music, and more from around the globe. If you want to hear more interviews, visit the Famous Interviews with Joe Dimino channel on YouTube. You can also find us on Spotify and Apple Podcasts. Thanks again for listening, and until next time.